fan service, whether you'd like to admit it or not, is an integral part of anime and its surrounding culture. From huge bouncing boobs, tight skimpy clothing, all the way to perverse panty shots. Without these things, animes today would not be what it is. On one hand, it can be used to make a show more enjoyable, but on the other, it has the potential to also ruin a viewer's experience entirely. When in excess, fan service can be so painfully horny that it can suck most of your enjoyment from watching an anime. But Kill la Kill was not one of those animes. Its narrative actually had structure, its characters were fun and lovable, packed with an incredible sense of wit and flair to them. Its hyper-dynamic visuals was absolutely cracked, and sometimes they were even stiff, to which aided the anime's delivery of jokes and comedy. You had these battles that were so incredibly curated, with spectacular bits of detail sprinkled here and there, with these fights being brought to life with badass battle themes that sucks you right into the action. Simply put, it was already great regardless of its fan service, making it such a memorable show for so many people who have watched it. They didn't need the bouncing boobs or the scandalous panty shots to create a sense of excitement and allure in the viewer. That was nothing but an added benefit. But the catch was Kill la Kill openly welcomed itself to the idea of fan service and shamelessly embraced it as part of its being. Now, people who are not fans of the anime would typically say that it over-sexualizes its characters to the point of being excessive, as it drags viewers further from the plot. And the twisted part about that is, I 100% agree with them. The fan service from time to time can get really out of hand, more especially if you are new to the anime, and this can range from genuinely unnecessary to just downright what the fuck. But what significantly set Kill la Kill apart is that instead of using fan service for the sake of only sexualizing its characters, it actually builds the concept into each episode's plot while touching on themes such as individuality or self-acceptance. Kill la Kill's approach to executing fan service was nothing more but a parody of how its lewd predecessors were, and by applying it in clever ways, it actually gave the anime more depth. They even went way and beyond to etch fan service into its power system, where, and this is an oversimplification by the way, the lesser clothing a character had, the more powerful they actually were. It's like if having an OnlyFans actually made you stronger. But when you eventually get used to it, which is pretty quickly, and get past all the nonsense, all the bullshit, that's when the anime starts to become untouchable. And with that comes its most boundary-pushing aspect. Kill la Kill's approach to animation is what I would call crack ecstasy all in one. But ironically, the first episode starts you off with this seemingly mundane shot of a class being conducted, when out of nowhere Gamagori busts down the door, chases down a spy through several flights of stairs by skydiving, and proceeds to chuck him hundreds of yards like a goddamn baseball, easily launching you into one of the most bombastic intros that an anime could ever offer. And what's amazing is that in less than 4 minutes in, Kill la Kill can already give you the impression that, oh yeah, this anime is gonna be fucking awesome. And it genuinely is. On one hand, you have these high-octane action sequences that are so flashy, so intense in movement and color, while you have numerous moving elements and details that are illustrated into each episodic skirmish, making them feel that more explosive and chaotic. Such as when the environment gets quickly damaged during a battle caused by the recoil of oncoming attacks. Kill la Kill also experiments with 3D modeled characters and elements, which expands the variety of their visuals, sometimes to great effect and sometimes, not really. The anime's art direction is also overly comical, as outlandish names and titles in bold red Japanese text introduces you to new characters, weapons, or details in such a boisterous fashion. But on the other hand, the anime can have this very lazy habit of stiffly moving characters in and out of the frame as if they're just a fucking JPEG image, such as when Satsuki's goons move into a scene or when characters begin to exchange dialogue. But even with this absurd direction choice, somehow this approach to animation actually works. Instead of favoring a consistent style of moving characters in, out, and within the screen, Kill la Kill focuses more on versatility, amping up the speed and power when a spectacular fight takes place, but also slowing it down sometimes to display more of its whimsical charm and funniness. As one approach is used to amaze you, the other is meant to amuse you, making Kill la Kill an experience that leaves you with your mind blown or with a big smile on your face. But what you must understand is that all of this animation bullshit would be completely useless if it weren't for the anime's sound design, because Kill la Kill's sound design is so... it's just so... and and its soundtrack is like a French kiss in the mouth. In anime, sound design is such an overlooked underdog element that you would not even notice it until you finally take it away, just like right now. See how depressing it is without sound? But the anime does have it, and it executes this with such finesse, from the tremendous shockwave of an intense parry to when Mako just starts monologuing out of nowhere to activate Ryoko's plot armor. But nothing beats the anime's epic soundtrack, which breathes life into these phenomenal moments, making them so memorable even to this day. By having back-to-back tracks of head-banging rock music, you can rest assured to be enraged with excitement as you vouch for Ryoko to just whoop some massive ass. But beyond all this flashy bullshit, let's dive even deeper to the most unexpected element to Kill la Kill as a whole: its story. Now, the narrative that Kill la Kill plays off with is quite simple really. After witnessing her father's death, Ryoko Matoi arrives at the Honoji Academy in search of his killer. With only her father's invention, the scissor blade, as her clue, she makes her way into the school's brutal hierarchy, which is led none other than by the tyrannical elite Satsuki Kiryuin, wherein those who stand on top are bestowed Goku uniforms, which grants the wearers superhuman abilities of their own. And as Ryoko tries to make her way to Satsuki, she gets her ass handed to her, but that's no problem because she later stumbles upon Senketsu, who's a sentient talking sailor uniform that grants her the power to beat the ever-living shit out of everyone she fights. Well, gradually she does. And now armed with this immensely strong plot armor, Ryoko makes her stand against Satsuki and the Academy's elite student body. But as the story grows, so does its characters, with Ryoko finding the most unlikely of companions, such as with Mako and her family, Senketsu, her teacher who turns out to be a perverted stripper. But you also meet villains who become respectable and fun people who you'll inevitably soften up to, like the four divas and even Satsuki herself. Slowly, Ryoko finds solace in having people she can call family, and with each battle won or lost, she grows closer with Senketsu as she understands her limits and improves on them, creating this wholesome alliance/friendship between woman and sailor uniform. Ryoko's journey becomes less about exacting justice for her father's death and more about the battles she fights in her mind, her individuality, and for the people she cares about and wants to protect. There are traits that make her an admirable person and things that make her far from great, but it's that balance between her persistence and willpower that always pushes Ryoko's character forward and what continues to take the anime story to new heights. The overall story of Kill la Kill is not some perfected masterpiece, but the fact an anime with a lot of horniness is still able to create enough structure to tell an interesting narrative is already impressive in itself. It's a story effectively told, all while gradually tying it down to huge plot twists that you'd never expect to see from this anime. Kill la Kill's overarching narrative has enough depth to keep it entertaining, but it's never too shallow that it gets boring. But what makes its story even more unique is its strong focus in creating characters that can push both its drama and comedy forward. You have your hot, badass tomboy, your comedically over-the-top best girl, her mom who makes croquettes with mystery ingredients, her dad who's a back alley doctor, her sly little brother who has a stealing disorder, their funny dog. You also have the overpowered sailor uniform who's just an awesome dude really, with a firm but gentle soul, and Ryoko's teacher who's a nudist spy that likes to strip every 3 seconds. But just when you'd think it would stop there, you still have an entire library of bizarro-ass villains that gets introduced each episode with their own quirks and mental issues. And by giving lesser thought to how characters are designed or written and just letting their imagination run wild, the anime is able to creatively cement the lightheartedness that it crafts. But Kill la Kill's way of writing characters can also get pretty deep, which is evident in Ryoko's development, and especially in her rival Satsuki. Both are strong female leads with the weight of their burdens to carry on their shoulders, but it is through the people that love them that they are inevitably freed from it without ever having to overcome them alone. The characters themselves will never get too serious and act as pieces that balance each other out, either when the conflict gets too heated up or when the comedy becomes too whimsical. And this is one of the main defining traits that made me fall in love with this anime. That balance between its drama and its comedy is just done so well. Now let me take a step back and say, out of all the things that I talked about in this video regarding Kill la Kill, the million-dollar question remains: who was the one to actually make all of this bullshit happen? Well, that's where these people come in. Now, to understand what was Kill la Kill, we need to understand how was Kill la Kill, which leads us to the people who were responsible for making it, and that's no other than Studio Trigger. Now, what makes this studio in particular very special is that they are known for making some pretty mid-ass animes. Darling in the Franxx, Brand New Animal, fucking Star Wars Visions. These were all animes that were more flash than they were substance. Their incapability of creating memorable titles can be attributed to the fact that they lacked experience. If you date back to their first ever anime release, that was only back in 2012, which was just a bit over a decade ago. They weren't anything close to the top dog studios of the anime industry like MAPPA, Madhouse, Kyoto Animation, or Studio Shaft. Baby Trigger was nothing but a fetus compared to them. So the real question here is, what made them stand out from the rest? I don't fucking know. But one thing that made Kill la Kill so iconic was its constant sense of chaos. Its hyper-dynamic visuals, the attention to hundreds of small little details, the psychotically over-the-top fights, the superbly fun characters and their rambunctious personalities. Kill la Kill wasn't legendary by any means, but these were the factors that made it such a success for the studio in their early days of producing anime, for which would many years later influence some of their greatest works yet. And when you consider the fact that Kill la Kill was actually an original written anime that went on to win multiple awards, you can't help but accept the amount of pure love and passion that was put into bringing this anime to life. Hell, they even won awards for having some of the best mascots, so you know for a fact they were not fucking around. But right here is where the stars align. The three very important names you must know to understand the origins of Kill la Kill is firstly its director Hiroyuki Imaishi, its animation producer Masahiko Otsuka, and lastly animation director and character designer Sushio. These three men formerly worked at Studio Gainax and had experience working in projects such as Evangelion, Fulikuli, Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, and although they would later on leave Gainax to go work at Studio Trigger, they were also its founders that helped establish its name. But the catch was Studio Gainax were the pioneers of fan service back in the day, and with these men being former employees there, you can see Gainax's creativity and influence pouring out from Kill la Kill's bombastic use of fan service, but also in its story, its character designs, and most importantly, in animation. If it weren't for these three men and their professional experience, this anime would not be as memorable as it is today, and it could have very well crumbled on its own fan service. But by having the right people on the job and with their collective knowledge of creating anime, Kill la Kill took off and eventually it prevailed. In their early days, this anime was practically a turning point for Studio Trigger and was proof that when they finally stopped playing with their dick and actually take the time to produce a quality anime, you can trust in them that it will be. And during 2013 to 2014, Kill la Kill was more than just the studio's first and best anime. It was a culmination of ideas, innovation, and years of experience from the company's founders working in this industry for what felt like a journey that they always sought to take, as they drew elements and pieces of inspiration from animes that they worked on in the past, such as with Fulikuli's ridiculously chaotic nature, or Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann's large-scale epic battles, or even Panty and Stocking's hot-blooded lewdness. You can all find it in the anime we now know as Kill la Kill. I've always heard a lot of good stuff about this anime and some negative things included, but after having watched it, looking back, Kill la Kill to me is one hell of an example when you break the limit off of what anime can possibly achieve and just start sprinting into the unknown. And by no means was it a masterpiece, but it is without a doubt a superbly amazing anime that succeeded through the influences that came before it, all while continuing to innovate in its own way. And there have been countless people who have definitely taken notice of that ever since 2014 and even till the present day. Kill la Kill is a must-watch and is one of the most memorable productions by a studio that was still fresh out the box. It's hilarious, it's phenomenally ridiculous, it's horny, it's award-winning, but most importantly, it's fucking awesome. Watch the goddamn anime, you son of a bitch.